Oh, my poor, sweet Skyward Sword. For almost 15 years, you've been ridiculed, mocked, bullied. For your motion controls, your linearity, your repetition. You! When I played you back in 2011, I loved you. And even though I still do, we need to talk about your ending and if it destroyed Zelda's lore beyond repair. For a franchise who didn't pay much mind to a timeline, Nintendo sure doubled down with Skyward Sword. For a company focused on gameplay over story, Nintendo sure doubled down with Skyward Sword. So it was that Skyward Sword would be a game of origins. The origin of the series as a whole. The origin of Link's hat. The origin of the Master Sword. And the origin of what I consider to be 3 major missteps in the franchise, which are all basically the same misstep for 3 different characters, eternally linked by some endgame dialogue. Check it. Skyward Sword has the same basic makeup of most other Zelda games, in that the main protagonists and antagonists relate to a specific piece of the Triforce. Except this game goes a step further. Specifically, Zelda is literally a god reborn as a mortal, an idea even Deniz thinks is bad. Link is the embodiment of a force known as the spirit of the hero, and Deniz connects them all with his curse, saying, "Those who share the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero are eternally bound to an incarnation of his hatred, born anew in a cycle with no end." I have 2 problems with this. The first is what Skyward Sword does is take these archetypical, metaphorical connections and makes them literal. No longer is Zelda's connection to the divine inferred by her wisdom, royalty, and sacrifice. Now she is a god mortally incarnate. No longer does Link become a hero. He already is one, with merely a set of trials procured by the goddess to overcome. Although, to be fair, the hero of destiny trope is not exclusive to Skyward Sword, and a bit overdone in my estimation as well. But now it has become attached to the spirit of the hero, and removed from the typical nobody. And Deniz, well, he sets in stone the inevitability of all future conflicts in the series. No longer are these conflicts the result of opposing ideals, or choices made by each character. No, now they are all part of a preordained curse that cannot be ended. The second problem, and I'll have to lean on y'all to supply the general feeling about this at the time, as I wasn't as in touch with the broader Zelda community then as I am now. But it seems that this game wants to be a comment on the series writ large. Skyward Sword released in November 2011, and just over a month later, Hyrule Historia was released in Japan, and with it, the first official Zelda timeline. It feels to me like Nintendo was giving an explanation for the recurrence of the same characters across games throughout time. But the explanation is not needed. To some extent, we all understand that the main characters in Zelda games are not the same, and different iterations of them are used both to be recognizable from a series perspective and new from a game-by-game perspective with some exceptions. If we abstract this further, the underlying message of the Zelda franchise is that when evil arises, the courageous and wise will meet it and eventually defeat it. To have to spell this out through Skyward Sword's plot, to me, cheapens what would otherwise be an intuition that deeply connects us to these games and their stories. The Japanese translation of Deniz's speech talks about the reincarnation of the demon tribe as well, which I think is actually worse. The implication being that the same 3 spirits fight over and over for time immemorial, instead of new times raising new champions, albeit ones that reflect the heroes and villains that have come before them. Now, Deniz's curse is rather vague, although there is a heavily implied connection between him and Ganondorf. So what does this mean for Vati or Majora or Null? What does it mean for games like Link's Awakening and Majora's Mask, which don't include Zelda or Ganondorf or the Triforce for that matter? To me, it's a very limiting way to codify this aspect of Zelda's lore, which didn't need an explanation in the first place. Now, in all fairness, we don't actually know what the spirit of the hero is, if it's a real or tangible thing. It could very well be that those who step up in dire times assume that spirit, and aren't related in any way to other Links by anything other than their courage, like Wind Waker's Link. To me, this is a much more accessible and preferred interpretation of the series. Evil is not made manifest by the curses of our ancestors. Just as heroes are not born, they are created. And just as the Triforce runs through the heart of us all, it's foolish to think that if we falter, we too can't be corrupted. Just as if we are balanced, we can become heroes.